Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the RotoWire DFS show. I am Jack Burkart, and it's been a while since I've been on one of these showdown streams. I think I haven't done one since the World Cup, so it's really nice to be back here. It's always tough to replace Adam. If you listen to Adam's showdown show for today with Leicester hosting Everton, hopefully you played a lot of Alex Iwobi. I think he scored like 25 DK points. Definitely one of the keys to being successful in tournaments and also probably in cash games as well. We are going to talk about the contest for the showdown tomorrow with Arsenal hosting Chelsea. So DraftKings, they've been neglecting us a lot for our classic contests. And I guess they're making the showdowns a bit bigger. Showdowns are easier to fill. Someone mentioned in the Discord that, a lot easier to make a simple showdown lineup than it is to sort of, make a classic lineup where there's a lot more things to consider. So I guess it makes sense that they're bigger. And we have two of the bigger teams. We have Arsenal hosting Chelsea. So normally we'd be a little bit more excited about an Arsenal-Chelsea match. It's one of the better London rivalries, but neither of these teams is in good form. It seems like Arsenal are basically out of the title race. I mean, they've given up way too many points over the past month, and Chelsea have just been terrible under Frank Lampard. So with the RotoWire tools, we have, amongst other things with the cheat sheets, we have like team standings, and you can click this last 6 to look at team form. And if you just look down here, Arsenal are 10th in the form table over the last 6 matches. They've only won 2 games, 3 draws, including some poor teams, like a horrible draw against Southampton, and of course their recent loss to Manchester City. So you can see here, Arsenal have been scoring goals at a fine clip, but their defense has been allowing quite a lot. And if you scroll down a bit further, you'll see Chelsea just in the last 6 games, one above the bottom 3 teams. I mean, they've truly been terrible. I think I saw some stat that in his last like 20 managed matches, Frank Lampard has won like 2 or 3 of them. So Frank is really not doing too well. Chelsea's woes continue, and you can see this. So they've only won 1 of their last 6 matches, 4 losses, struggling to score goals, struggling to get anything going, really. In this Brentford match, they started with a back 3. They like lined up as if they were on the road at Manchester City, even though they're at home hosting Brighton. So it's been pretty brutal for both of these teams. So tough to be enthusiastic, but we'll try to break this down from a DFS point of view. Injury-wise, Chelsea have been struggling with injuries, but I don't think there's any too much new information here on either side. Saliba is still hurt for Arsenal, so he's been out for a while. We still have Reece James and Cucurella out, Mason Mount out, Koulibaly out, and it looks like we have a questionable take on Kai Havertz, but we'll see how everything works out. As far as formations go, I don't think we're going to be expecting much surprises. So from Arsenal's point of view, I think they're going to stick with their usual 4-3-3, and this is probably their best healthy squad. Rob Holding, not the preferred center back, but he's been doing fine in replacement of Saliba. I don't know, maybe not fine actually if the defense has been so bad, but it's kind of been the whole team struggling. So yeah, classic 4-3-3. Odegaard being a little bit more attacking that midfield, where Partey and Xhaka are holding things down, and then Martinelli and Saka on the wings with Gabriel Jesus as a forward. Just from like a minutes point of view for all these guys, the minutes have been looking pretty good for Martinelli. I mean, we'll see if Trossard is on the bench, but he's played 90 in 2 of his 3 past matches, and I think he has a 77 against Manchester City when a lot of guys were subbed off early in that game. Odegaard usually plays most of the games. So the premium attacking options in Arsenal, they look pretty much in play. I'm not too worried about any of them. And then if for Chelsea, it's Chelsea, so who really knows what they're going to do? They could line up in this 4-3-3. They could line up in a 5-5-3-2 or something. Whatever Frank Lampard has up his sleeve is probably not going to work. But what we have here is a 4-3-3. This is what Chelsea changed to in the second half of the Brentford game, and I think they had a little bit more success attacking at least. They had a lot of possession. Brentford was probably offering them a lot of possession and playing them on the counter, but reason to believe that if the 4-3-3 worked fine, at least for a half, that Lampard might go to it again. Hopefully, it can't really work much worse than it has been for their other formations. So that puts Chilwell as a left back, and then we would have Chalobah. He played as a right back in the second half against Brentford, and he whipped in 6 crosses. So he's at the min price for this showdown. So that's a fairly interesting option. The midfield 3 won't really change. You have Enzo Fernandez, you have Mateo Kovacic, and N'Golo Kante. Kante has been playing a little bit more forward under Frank Lampard. I mean, he's been doing fine, and Kante's a good player. It's just like he's not really known for his attacking prowess. I think Kante has like 6 shots in his last 2 games, and I think he had 3 chances created recently against Brentford. So he's actually been pretty good from a fantasy point of view. It's just a weird real life choice, especially when Chelsea have all these young attacking players on the bench. But that's just what Lampard wants to do. So depending on what the formation is, Conte might be a little bit more forward. And then the forwards that started the second half or came on in the second half against Brentford, we'll have Mudryk and Sterling on the wings, and then Aubameyang might start at forward, but we'll have to see. That could easily be Havertz. But if Alba does start, he's a 3.8K, so that's certainly a pretty enticing price. So again, we always have to be really flexible with Chelsea. We never really know what's going to go on. It's really tough to count on them for set pieces and stuff too. If we just look at the odds, Arsenal, to no surprise, is the home team. They're about 60% favorites to win. That seems about right, even if Arsenal are out of form. Chelsea are in even worse form, and Arsenal definitely been the better team almost all phases of the season. Implied goal total of 2 goals, 40% odds to keep a clean sheet. So that's probably going to put Ramsdale on the menu, at least as a consideration in cash games. A pretty healthy total overall. Nothing too surprising about these odds. Just looking at the chat, we have our friend Chris. What is this kit you're wearing? Yeah. So I'm representing Forward Madison right here. They're the local USL team. So it's the most obnoxious pink shirts. So they're the Forward Madison Flamingos as their mascot. So they always have the most flamboyant kits. I find them pretty fun. So I got this one as a Christmas present for myself. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, looking at the odds here, Arsenal favored, no surprises. I think Arsenal are going to be pretty popular in this one. No one really stands out for their goal odds. Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, all about the same odds to score. Saka's a little bit down in goal scoring odds. Saka missed a penalty in mid-April, so in a couple of weeks ago. I forget exactly who he was playing. So normally we'd just be confident that Saka is on penalty duties along with splitting set pieces, but I'm not certain if Saka is taking penalties anymore. So I'll double check that. If there's anything changing with that, like maybe there's a press conference and Arteta's like, no, Saka's our guy, even though he missed. That's news worth following. But I mean, if Jesus took a penalty, he took one earlier this season, that wouldn't be surprising as well. So it's going to be tough to count on Saka at this 11.2K price tag to be taking penalties as well. And he's kind of priced for that sort of role. So that's one thing to consider as you're building lineups. Highest odds guys to score on Chelsea are like at about plus 300. Their total's only 1. So these numbers make sense, but all in all, nothing a huge surprise. You're going to want to find the goal scorer, and otherwise floor points will probably be a little bit more important. From a set piece point of view, Arsenal have been pretty similar throughout the whole season. So Saka is definitely going to take probably the right-sided set pieces and some of the indirect free kicks. Odegaard will take other indirect free kicks, and he'll take the occasional corner as well. And I didn't watch this game in game 32 over here with Martinelli, but it looks like he took 4 corners. I'll have to look more into why that happened. It seems like he hasn't been preferred on corner kicks or free kicks, but helps his floor a little bit. But you can't really count on too much from Arsenal as far as a floor point of view for them to be accruing a lot of like corners. It's tough to project them for that because, it would be a fantastic fixture if Arsenal get like 10 or 12 corners, but, then Saka gets 3, Odegaard takes 3, and Martinelli takes 5. It's not really worth as many points. It definitely helps them out, but no one is going to have like an outsized benefit from that sort of thing. So personally, because I don't really have a good feel for it, I'll probably treat them as all the same. Maybe I'll just plan on all of them to take 2 corners. Boost them a little bit, but there's no monopolists on this team whatsoever. And I mean, if Trossard comes on at 10K, if he surprise starts, I mean, he'll make that even more of a mess. So don't really count on anything, but the obvious suspects will get like a 2-point boost in their projection from taking those set pieces and getting the crosses. DFS Chan is watching. He has a big capital Jack. Shout out Chan. Let's look at Chelsea set pieces then. So Chilwell should take most of their set pieces. He's pretty expensive at 8,200. This is a game where Chelsea are not going to have too much possession. I don't know how many corners they're going to have. Maybe we can ask the corner master, Adam, what he thinks about any over-unders for Chelsea for this one. And at 8,200, if he's not going to take many corners, if he's only going to take 4, that's a really tough price to pay if he's not crossing in from open play. You really want him to be confident that he's on a monopoly at that price. You want them to have possession, so he's creating chances and taking shots. So it's tough to say no to someone like Chilwell even in cash games, but I feel like I'd rather roster an Arsenal attacker from a cash game perspective. In GPPs, maybe you'll want to lean in on Chelsea a little bit. Um, it's worth noting that really anything can happen with Chelsea set pieces. So if you look at our free kick tracker, when Mudryk came on, he took 2 corners. I don't know if this is a function of Chelsea being down 1 or 2 to Brentford, and he just took a couple because they had to hurry. He's taken a few corners, but I feel like that's something that's not going to be sticky. Chilwell definitely taking at least a partial or majority role on set pieces. That seems like the sticky trend. But if someone like Conor Gallagher starts, you can't be surprised if he takes a couple corners. If João Felix randomly starts taking corners and free kicks again, we can't claim to be particularly surprised by that. The only thing I can confidently say is that Chilwell will take some corners, and I don't even know how many there will be. So it's a lot of talking about set pieces for the sake of it's a big shoulder shrug. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Some players will benefit, but how much, it's really tough to tell. You're going to want guys who are going to be the goal scorers and hopefully get some value from open play. So with that breakdown, let's kind of finally start covering things from a cash game perspective. I really don't like showdown cash games too much. There's only 6 spots. It feels like opponents are less likely to make mistakes when there's no positional requirements. So definitely not my favorite format and definitely not my strongest format whatsoever. But maybe we can just talk through things and try to identify what the construction at least looks like. I'll leave the micro decisions to you and we can chat about it in the Discord as well. But it's a tough price tag on Saka, even though he's a little bit less likely to score a goal if there's some doubts with his penalty role. But I still think it makes a lot of sense to captain him in this spot because he is the most reliable set piece taker. He's the most reliable to always go 90 minutes, and he's just their best player, quite frankly. So I think you can still captain Bukayo Saka. And I think you'll have room in this type of construction that out of the 3 forwards, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, and Odegaard, I think you'll be able to roster 3 of them in cash games. And which 3, what you want to roster to pair with a Saka captain, that's going to depend on how you want to fill out the rest of the spots in your lineup. So I think it's a little bit better to check out the value options on Chelsea, actually. So I'm going to go to the away filter here since Chelsea are the away team and we have a big enough sample for meaningful stats with Chelsea playing on the road this late in the season, and then sort by salary. If you scroll down, again, I talked about Chilwell, 8,200, maybe a little bit expensive for cash games. Sterling and Mudryk, not cash game options. And if you look down, everyone below 4K, there's actually some pretty solid options here. So if Trevoh Chalobah starts at right back, if Chelsea line up in a back 4 at 3K, he feels like a pretty good deal. He got 6 crosses in last week. He's an athletic player. We won't count on another 6 cross performance, but he can have a pretty safe floor. I mean, when you're paying the min price for right back, it just feels like a pretty solid deal, especially from a cash game point of view. And it helps you afford other expensive players when you want to pay up either for Chilwell or the Chelsea forward. So you can slot in Chalobah in one of your utility spots. And then you have a lot of options here. So if Aubameyang starts, he might play 60 minutes, but he's plus 300 to score a goal. I wouldn't blame you for playing him for 3,800. I mean, what difference in floor does he have to, other center backs? And he has upside for a goal. Plus, there's no one cheap on Arsenal that you can play, as we'll look at later. Got N'Golo Kante at 3,600. As I mentioned before, he's been shooting a lot more. He's been creating chances, and he's been playing in a slightly advanced role. So if the Chelsea formation looks like it has in the past with Enzo and Kovacic in midfield along with Kante, he's going to be the one venturing a little bit more forward. And at 3,600 for that type of role, he'll still pick up some defensive stats and take a few shots. He's going to be too cheap in that range as well. So we could have as many as 3 of these guys starting, and I think you can use any 2 that you want in cash games. And when you put those 2 in, that's sort of the straw that stirs the drink and lets you afford 3 expensive forwards, and then we'll be looking at 1 mid-range price guy. So if you want to play those 2 Chelsea punts so that you can play some Arsenal pieces, well, what are we going to look at? First of all, there's not really many viable pure punts from the Arsenal point of view. We have a cheapest price that we're expecting to start. Let me put in the filter for Arsenal. ARS. So cheat sheet is super handy for all these tools. You get the 2-day free trial if you're not a member already. The cheapest price guys, we have Thomas Partey and Gabriel at 4,600. So I'd hardly call those guys punts, especially if you're paying up for some of the forward options. So that's why I think it's going to make sense to use 2 Chelsea guys there. I mean, find targets, but you're going to need to save salary somewhere. And I think it just makes the most sense to use those Chelsea guys who might have more positive roles, even if they don't have as much possession. All right. So that's a long-winded way of going back to my original point that, which three Arsenal forwards are we going to want to play? So Saka at captain, that kind of seems obvious. And Martinelli, he's had a better floor lately and he's played more minutes. So that seems like a pretty palatable option, but 10.8K is it's a pretty expensive price to pay. I don't know. I just kind of feel a little bit iffy on it, even though if he is one of the likelier goal scorers, but he does have a better floor. So you can play Martinelli, and then you can pair him with one of Gabriel Jesus or Martin Odegaard. Jesus, he kind of has this classic boom bust striker, not much of a floor. Maybe he gets 3 shots or something like this. And Odegaard plays very centrally as well. So he's not really whipping in crosses too often unless they're from set pieces. He's going to rely on getting volume central and creating chances and getting shots. So that can make his floor a little bit more volatile than you want from a cash game point of view. But I think it might make some sense to think about, well, what do your 3 Arsenal forwards mean for your 4th lineup spot? So one thing that you can do, because Arsenal are about 40% to keep a clean sheet, is if you play Saka, Jesus, and Odegaard. So this would mean fading Martinelli, and then you play Conte and Chalobah. You have enough money to fit in Aaron Ramsdale. That might make a lot of sense even from a cash game point of view. Maybe you're unsure of where the set pieces go, but Ramsdale, you feel confident you can pencil him in for a 5-point win. Maybe he gets a couple saves, maybe he gets a clean sheet. That seems like a fairly compelling option. If you don't want to do that, take that route, I totally understand. So you could maybe unplug someone like Odegaard. He's so close to Jesus anyway. You plug in Martinelli, you're left with around 6K in salary. So then you can play someone like Ben White, or you're looking at someone like the Enzo Fernandez range. This is kind of the reason I prefer to get up to Ramsdale. These mid-priced options just seem pretty mid, I guess, as the Zoomers would say. Ben White, he's been running pretty hot on goals and assists, but he still has plenty of games at right back where he's not actually logging any crosses. So 6,000 feels pretty expensive. And I think DraftKings is pricing him up just because of recent output. So it feels like you're kind of paying a premium on small sample variance going Ben White's way. If I was looking at this type of construction, I would probably be playing Enzo Fernandez. He hasn't been playing 90 minutes under Frank Lampard, which is really frustrating, but he could take the odd set piece here and there. He does provide some help in the attack. He'll take a shot or two, maybe he'll create a chance, maybe he'll get a couple crosses, and then he'll be able to accumulate some defensive stats as well. So as gross as that would feel, like Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, and then fill the spot out, it doesn't feel great to use to do like a 3-3 build when we expect Arsenal to dominate, but that's kind of where the pricing is leading us. I wouldn't blame you for going Ben White either. I do think I prefer the Ramsdale option in cash games, though. That's basically what you're looking at. I think the dominant cash game construction is going to be 4 Arsenal guys, or maybe Enzo Fernandez in there. Maybe you choose to arrange things so you can play Granit Xhaka, and then punt with 2 of these really cheap and palatable Chelsea guys. That construction makes all the sense in the world. Good luck to you in picking the optimal players from a cash game point of view. I think we should move on now that we know that the dominant construction is going to be 4 Arsenal players and then 2 cheap Chelsea players, to figure out the gigabrained ways that we are going to win GPPs tomorrow. So there's a lot of king of the pitch seats still to fill. I think DraftKings has to fill 25 more of them. So they're randomly throwing in all the king of the pitch contests in Showdown. And the 2 options we have, there's a $25 king of the pitch qualifier. So that's a winner take all. And that's a 130 person contest. So smaller field. And then this one doesn't come out too often, but there's a $5 contest with about 700 entries, and that's winner take all as well. So if you're going to be playing in that $5 King of the Pitch contest, you're really going to want to embrace a very high variance approach, I think, because it's winner take all. So one problem with embracing really high variance approaches, like substitute goals in a showdown, is that you're just losing so often because it's such like a thin way to get there. You're kind of forfeiting a lot of min cash equity. Well, there is no min cash equity in these king of the pitch contests. And when there's 700 people, and if you chop, you have to beat them in a head to head in a similar showdown format, I think it makes all the sense in the world to experiment with more gigabrained strategies. So looking at the chat here, best CB captain of the slate, Rhoda Zadroik. So Adam's in the chat. Who do we want to captain at center back in this case? I would probably want to captain an Arsenal center back here. And I think Gabrielle would be due for a goal. So if I had to captain a center back, I would look to Arsenal, throw Gabrielle in there, pair him with anyone who could take a set piece. So in that case, you could probably be able to play Saka, Martinelli, and Odegaard, and then just fill out the last two spots. So that certainly fits the bill for that $5 contest. Maybe that's a little bit too galaxy brain for the $25 contest. So what other things can we mess with from strictly a tournament point of view? Well, maybe for a tournament of the size of that $25 King of the Pitch contest, where you only have to beat 120 other lineups, I built a Ramsdale lineup that looked pretty interesting. Again, because of all these Chelsea punts, you can really afford a lot, especially if you spend a little bit less on your captain. So Ramsdale is only 7,000, and so hopefully you're planning on the winning clean sheet with him, and then you can fit in three of the Chelsea forwards fairly easily with this. You can play Saka, Martinelli, Jesus. You can throw in Odegaard. You could play Chilwell in there if you want. So that would be under the thesis that Arsenal get an early goal and then Chelsea attack late, and then Chilwell can pile on some crosses, maybe get a couple shots on goal. And then you can play Gabrielle, you can play Ben White, whatever center back you want for the correlation, then just fill in the last spot. You can use Chalobah as a free square if you want. I think that would make a lot of sense. So I think that type of construction feels like home goalkeeper goes slightly underowned in some of these showdown contests, especially in smaller field where people are doing a lot of cash game and cash game adjacent lineups. People just aren't getting to the goalkeeper captain lineup in those type of contests. I mean, sometimes you have to study them pretty carefully, but I feel like there might be a good chance that Ramsdale captains are underrepresented in that 120 person type of lineup. And if you really want to embrace variance, one thing you can do is you can take note of the Chelsea attackers, which are in the similar range to Aaron Ramsdale. So Aaron Ramsdale is 7,000, so you could just unclick his name, and you could put someone like Ben Chilwell in captain, Raheem Sterling, or Mikhailo Mudryk in captain if you want. Captain a Chelsea guy, and then play two Arsenal pieces, and then fill the rest out with Chelsea spots. That's a pretty gross construction. No one's going to want to captain Chelsea pieces because it's tough to run. Their set pieces. Someone like Mudryk and Sterling, they might only play 75 minutes. But if I'm looking at that $5 King of the Pitch contest and I want a construction that's very much different, and when it succeeds, it has a much higher probability of winning. And I don't care if I finish 10th. I don't care. There is no min cashing. There is no 3xing. I think that's something that's definitely worth considering. The Arsenal defense has been really leaky. It's very conceivable that this game could be like 2-2, and the Chelsea guys are cheaper. And so the thesis of that would be, Saka and Jesus each score a goal. Maybe they assist each other. And most of the fantasy output, rests in just those two. Then hopefully you can find the Chelsea goals from there. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with that. You don't necessarily even have to captain a Chelsea player if you think that's too thin, but you could definitely consider construction, that's like Saka and Martinelli. And then you play four Chelsea players, two of the cheaper guys, and then play Chilwell and Mudryk, something along these lines. Again, a tournament only suggestion. You're very likely to lose because Chelsea have only scored 4 goals in the last 6 games. But when it works, I think it's very appropriate leverage, and it makes a lot of sense just based on the distribution of the contest payout. So we're having a comment here. Cucurella goal from Fofana assists tomorrow. I think Cucurella is out, but if he plays, sure, go for it. What else do I like from a tournament point of view here? Yeah, basically just counting on Chelsea to score a goal and being willing to take some risks on these Chelsea attackers. I think it'll make a ton of sense. They just won't be too high owned. I mean, is Sterling going to be more than 30% owned? I think he's more than 30% likely to score a goal. Or maybe he's about 30% likely to score a goal. Well, maybe that's not so great then, but I think just being willing to take some risks on these guys will make a lot of sense when the Arsenal forwards, it's fairly easy to play them and everyone's going to pile on. I had one more idea here that I can't quite remember. We could do an Enzo Fernandez captain. That might be interesting. Oh, I wanted to talk about potential substitute goals. So again, that makes a lot of sense in a winner-take-all contest. And if Aubameyang starts, he's going to be very popular because he's so cheap at 3,800. Now, if Aubameyang doesn't start, I'm not sure how many people are going to take up this strategy. But if people use like Chalobah and Conte, you can just slot one of them out and play Aubameyang. I think he's going to sub on, so we can check his game log here. Yeah, 4 shots off the bench against Brentford, so super sub status. Okay, well, these are not particularly inspiring game logs, but he did play well as a substitute against Brentford. So if he starts on the bench, hopefully he gets on the field. That's the tricky thing about the sub goal. You want the guy to actually be on the field, even if it's for at least 10 minutes. But that's a very low risk, high reward move. I mean, he's only 3,800. Other Chelsea guys that you could look to that'll come on. Let's take a look. We don't project João Felix to start, but if he comes on the field, what do his minutes look like recently? Yeah, he's been coming on as a substitute, so that would definitely be a very high variance move. But the thesis there would be that maybe it's a 1-1 match. There's not too much floor points to go around, and then you're going to be probably the only person in one of these contests to have João Felix, and he comes on and scores a goal. You just have 12 points that no one else could possibly have. You could go with that sort of thing. Let's bring up the Chelsea team again. Yeah, it's just so tough to figure out what Frank Lampard is going to do. Conor Gallagher will probably sub on, but he's not as likely to score a goal. I think you get the point, though. I mean, Kai Havertz starts in the bench, and you expect him to come on. I think you can definitely afford to go for one of these goals. From the Arsenal point of view, who do we have that might come off the bench? It might be too expensive because if Trossard and Nketiah come off 10K, that might be getting a little bit disgusting. That extra 1,000 might compromise you a little bit. But yeah, that's just one thing to keep an eye on. If Aubameyang doesn't start, I definitely don't mind trying to use him for a late substitute goal. Yeah, those are most of my thoughts on tournaments. I'm just going to try to avoid, these 4-2 Arsenal type of constructions in favor of, something that speculates that Chelsea score a goal or maybe a little bit more successful than the field thinks. I think sentiment for Chelsea is an all-time low. So if you're willing to take a risk on them, I think the payoffs are right. Let's conclude by building. I haven't talked about this approach, but Kepa is 6,600 in the captain spot. So let's see what we can do with him as a captain. So I'll plug him right in there. So, Chelsea have like a 15% chance to keep a clean sheet. So we'll do the Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. We're definitely going to want Ben Chilwell in this lineup. And so we have 8,800 salary remaining for each of the spots. Let's get set pieces in here. Saka, Martinelli, and Odegaard. The thesis there is that let's only take 2 of them. I will take let's just do Martinelli for the sake of argument here. All right, so we have Kepa, Chilwell, Saka, Martinelli, 6,600 remaining per player. How about Mudryk? He provided a spark off the bench against Brentford, so that's 7,600. We have 5,600 left. Oh man, that leaves me just short of Enzo Fernandez. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unplug Martinelli. I'm going to put Odegaard in there. Gives me 6,800. And then Enzo Fernandez. He'll finally get that Chelsea goal. He'll finally break the slate. But yeah, there's your Kepa captain. Please don't dupe me, although that's a pretty gross lineup, so I don't think many will. But I think it just goes to show that if you're willing to captain one of these cheaper players, you really can play whoever you want. Chilwell, Saka, Odegaard, and Mudryk, they're all fairly expensive, and you're not even left punting in your last spot. So getting a little off the board with your captain to get off the chalk construction, I think it's worth a shot. Anyway, oh wow, that was 30 minutes of me blabbing there. I think I'll call it at that. Um, you can check out all of our stuff at rotowire.com. Try out the soccer trial if you're not a subscriber already. It's really, the cheat sheet's the best tool in the world. It saves you so much time. So if you've been listening live, thank you for listening, and good luck in all these contests tomorrow. I will be entering a couple into that $5 King of the Pitch, so I'm not going to wish you good luck in that contest, but I wish you good luck in all of the rest of the contests. All right, have a good evening, everybody. Good luck.